Hello Oracle people, this is Justin, and in this Oracle YouTube video tutorial I'm going to show you how to work with what's called restricted user sessions in an Oracle database. Now typically an Oracle database that is running and open in a normal environment can be accessed by anyone who has authority to log onto that database, i.e. they have a user ID that the DBA created them. So, or they get in by other means, like through the application via a port connection. But we're just talking about SQL Plus users here. So, set our Oracle SID to finance. Ensure that it's set correctly. And normally we can connect with our special connect string /as sysdba, which connects us as the DBA of the database. Show user saying user is sys. Select name from the database, and we see we're connected to finance. And we can also connect with a regular user, like the Justin user I created. We can log in, show user, and we see that we're connected as user Justin. Now, there's a special privilege out here called restricted. And there's multiple ways to enter restrict mode. What you can do is you can shut down the database like so, if it's currently running, of course. And we can do a startup, but put a special option in here, restrict. Okay, and the startup will go through all three phases of startup. Okay, no mount, and open. All right, so it'll go all the way it will start up all the way, which means it'll open the data files and be ready for connections. But we're going to start it up in a restricted mode. Okay, and I'll show you what that means. So we type in startup restrict. And the database appears to start up as normal. It starts the instance, it mounts the database, and it opens the database. Okay, database open. Now, do the following. Type in select logins from $$ instance. Again, that's select logins from $$ instance. It says restricted. We are currently in restricted mode. Now, what's going on? What does that mean for the database? It means if I try to log in as regular user Justin, who has no DBA privilege to the database, even though I type in the correct password, I'm going to get an error that says Oracle only available to users with restricted session privilege. Try it again. No avail again. It doesn't matter. I get the same message. Or 01035, Oracle only available to users with restricted session privilege. But notice, I can connect as the sysdba, user sys, just fine, because he has DBA privilege, and he has the privilege, and DBA has all system privileges, or Oracle system privileges, including the privilege that he's talking about here, restricted session. Now, if I were to go ahead and grant that user restricted session privilege, system privilege, then that user will be able to log into the database even though it's been started in a restricted mode. So if it's me, the DBA, if I say grant restricted, that's the name of the system privilege, session, restricted session, to Justin, like so, it says grant succeeded. Now if I try to log in with Justin, as you can see, it succeeds, even though the database is in restricted mode, because up here I granted restricted session to Justin. Okay, and this comes in handy if I want to start my database up there in an outage window, but I don't want to necessarily shut it down. I don't have to shut it down to do the work that I have to do as a DBA on my database, but I don't want users to be able to connect to the database with SQL Plus. Let's say it's a database that has heavy user traffic, and I just don't want users logging in with SQL Plus, running their reports against the data, doing their queries, doing whatever else they do, or data loads, whatever else they do, and slowing down the database. I need all the performance of my box. So whatever the reason is, I'm locking users out. Okay, but there's a few users that I do want them to be able to log in during that time. What I can do is I can grant them the restricted session. Now, once you're in restricted mode, to disable it, do the following. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to revoke that privilege from the user Justin. So revoke restricted session from Justin. And now, because we're in restricted mode, it should be back to where it was before the grant, where I can't log in. Oops, if I type in the right password. I can't log in because it's in restricted mode. Okay, so now, if I type in select logins from $restricted, like so, instance, if I type it right, it shows that the database is currently in restricted mode. If I wanted to get out of restricted mode, I type in the following: alter system disable restricted session. Alter system disable restricted session. System altered. Now if I do that select statement again, select logins from $session, it says allowed. Okay? Now, remember, I took the restricted session privilege away from user Justin. So now, if I attempt to log in as user Justin, I should succeed, even though I don't have that restricted user session anymore, privilege anymore, because, even though I don't have, the restricted session privilege anymore, because I lifted that restricted session. Okay, so now let's say that I wanted to put the database in restricted mode, but I don't want to shut the database down first. I want to do a lot of databases still up. Okay, we see from a select logins from instance that we're not in restricted mode. It says allowed. I can type in the following: alter system enable restricted session. So now I do an alter system enable restricted session. Hit enter. Do my select logins, it says restricted, and now my regular user without that privilege will attempt to log in, and of course no, he'll get locked out. Well, not locked out, but he won't be allowed to be logged in. See, I'm in restricted mode, and I just again type in my disable command. So see that it's allowed, and user Justin will be allowed to connect to the database once again. Okay, so that's how you enable restricted session to start up when you start up the database. Okay, so it's a option to your startup command, and how to do it on the fly while the database is still running, where you don't have to shut it down and start it up again. Okay, and as you can probably imagine, use your imagination, there are quite a few reasons why you would want to restrict login sessions to a database. Okay, but the only time that I've really done it, to give you a worldwide example, out in the field, is when I've had databases that have been on servers that are really constrained with performance. Okay, they don't have many CPUs, they don't have much memory in them, and but the databases that run on them are very, very user intensive, and I had to do something where the data loads I really had to do data loads. I had to do something where I needed all the system resources, and I couldn't compromise that. So I put the database in restricted mode so no one could log in. And I just sent an email out to the user community saying, I put the database in restricted mode. You won't be able to log in via SQL Plus or tools that log in that way until I'm done, because I need access to all the database resources, all the system resources. Okay, that's how you do it.